Hello again, friends. This week is another request from Mike from Japan. He asked if I could read the next Midas story. So if you're unfamiliar and don't want to watch my other video, King Midas is a figure from Greek mythology. If you prefer to watch the story, there is a link here for you. There should be a timestamp to skip to the story, but honestly this will only take a minute. He was the king of Phrygia, located in what is now Turkey, and what he is most known for is poor choices. In the first story, the king of bad decisions is granted one wish by the god Dionysus. Now, as every D&D or Pathfinder gamer will tell you, a wish spell is the most dangerous thing in the whole world. Well, his majesty of not fully thinking things through proves this by wishing that all he touches turn to gold. His fuzzy thinking is made quickly clear to him when all his food becomes gold in his mouth, and then even more so when he gets a hug from his daughter. Let's just say things would have ended poorly.
You chose poorly.
Except that Dionysus took pity and allowed Midas to wash the golden touch away. Our next story starts right in where the last one left off, so join me now in the further adventures of King Midas. From that day onwards, King Midas hated gold. I can't blame him for that. Every day he would wander deep in the forest, far from his palace, far from the clink and the chink of golden coins, far from the glimmer and the glitter of the golden statues. He would wander deep and deep into the silences of the forest. I have to say this is an excellent idea for everyone. Please take time to go to your happy place when you need to. Don't put it off until you have more time. Time is a construct, and you make of it what you will. Just, avoid little huts on chicken legs. And one day, as he was wandering, suddenly he heard the sound of music. And he stumbled on a clearing, and there, sitting in the middle of the clearing, was Pan, the god of wild things, the god of wild places and wild animals. Pan with his horns and his goat legs, playing his pipes, his pan pipes. Well, that's redundant. Of course they're Pan's pipes. They belong to him. King Midas crouched among the bushes, listening to the music, enchanted and entranced. And then Pan lowered his pipes from his lips and began to boast. I'm the finest musician of them all. I am the finest musician in the world. I'm a finer musician even than golden Apollo when he plucks his golden lyre.
The devil went down to Georgia.
Well, nothing is hidden from the eyes and the ears of the mighty gods and goddesses, and golden Apollo, on the high slopes of Mount Olympus, heard the sound of Pan's voice, and his forehead furrowed into a frown, and suddenly the golden god was standing in the clearing in front of Pan and King Midas.
He was looking for a soul to steal.
Two gods staring at one another, and golden Apollo said, Pan, we will have a contest of music, you and I, and the judge will be that mountain. And he pointed to a great mountain called Tmolus that rose high above the tops of the trees.
Al, what are you doing? Why are you bringing me into this?
And as the golden Apollo pointed, a strange thing happened. From either side of the mountain, two huge gray stone ears unfolded. Gross. I've heard the walls have ears. Now we have to be careful around mountains, too.
The hills are alive.
And the first to play was Pan. He lifted his pipes to his lips, and he began to blow. And in his music were all the sounds of wild nature. The baying and the belling of the stags, the howling of the wolves, the thundering of hooves, the creaking and cracking of the branches, and the crashing of floodwater, the bright songs of birds, the humming of bees. It was both beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
And he pulled his bow across the strings and it made an evil hiss.
And then Pan lowered his pipe from his lips, and Apollo lifted his lyre to his shoulder, and he began to play. And as he played, It was as though the strings of his lyre were the threads of the loom upon which the whole world was woven. It was as though every note was an element, every melody was a formula. And as the shimmering, cascading music came, the whole world held its breath. And then, when Apollo lowered his lyre from his shoulder and the music stopped, the whole world sighed.
But I'll take your bet you're going to regret because I'm the best as ever been.
Pan dropped to his knees and lowered his head. The great mountain Tmolus opened his cavernous cave of a mouth and pronounced, "Apollo is the winner." Ah! A talking mountain!
Devil bowed his head because he knew that he'd been beat.
But then, from among the bushes there came a voice. "No! Why should the victory go to golden Apollo? Why should the victory go to the plinkety-plonk of a plunked lyre, when Pan's music is the real thing? Pan's music is finer by far." You know, it is clear to me that the king of Foot and Mouth has a massive death wish. It was King Midas, and golden Apollo turned and looked at him, and he frowned.
I done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best as ever been.
And with the frown of Apollo, King Midas felt himself suddenly, strangely changed. Ooh, is he a cockroach? He should be a cockroach.
Gregor Samsa awoke one morning to discover that he had been transformed into a giant cockroach. Nah, too good.
He reached up, he felt his face with his hands, and his ears had moved. They were no longer growing out of the side of his face, they were growing out of the top of his head. He touched them with his fingers, 2 gray, twitching, bristling donkey's ears. Those ears that had listened and had not heard, had been turned into the ears of an ass. He looked around himself. Pan had vanished. He crouched down behind the bushes, folding his ears down against the side of his face, and all day he waited till the sun set and the night came and the sky brightened with stars. And then he made his way through the forest and back to his palace. And he found a length of purple cloth, and he wrapped it round and around and around and around his head. And he thought, now nobody need know. But a king's hair will grow just as anybody else's hair will grow. And the days and the weeks and the months passed. And soon enough, King Midas knew that he needed a haircut. And so he called a barber to a secret room. And he said to the barber, "Can you keep a secret?" And the barber said, "Oh yes, I can keep a secret."
Can you keep a secret? Yes. Second on it.
And King Midas said, "If you can keep my secret, you have a job for life. Every week you can cut my hair, and every week I'll pay you with a purse full of silver coins." And the barber said, "Then I can certainly keep your secret." So King Midas unwound the cloth. He unwound it, and he unwound it, and his hair flopped down over his shoulders, and out of the top of his head, 2 twitching, bristling, gray donkey's ears pointed up at the ceiling. And the barber stared, laughter and horror wrestling in the pit of his belly, but he said nothing. And he took his scissors and his razor, and he shaved and he shaped, and he cut and he clipped. And when the hair was done, King Midas took a purse of silver coins, and he dropped it into the barber's hand, and he said, "Remember, not a word to anybody." And the barber bowed, and he was gone. And King Midas wrapped the purple cloth round and around and around his head. And for one day, the barber kept his secret. But it was as though he had a mouse pouched in his cheek. Every time he opened his mouth, he thought the secret was going to jump out. For 2 days he kept the secret, but every word he spoke seemed to be turning into, "King Midas has donkey ears." Every thought seemed to be becoming, "The king has the ears of an ass." and on the third day he could stand it no longer. He went out into the forest with a trowel. He knelt on the ground, he dug a hole, and he whispered into the hole, "King Midas has donkey's ears. The king has the ears of an ass." And he filled up the hole, and he went home, feeling comfortable at last. But where he dug the hole, a cluster of reeds grew, and the wind blew through the reeds, and the reeds began to whisper the secret. And the birds heard the reeds whispering, and they began to sing the secret. And soon enough, the whole world knew. King Midas has donkey's ears. The king has the ears of an ass. So I've looked and looked, and this is the end of the actual stories I could find. There are a lot of summaries and according to this person and in real life sort of things, but as far as I can tell, this is the end of the story. King Midas lives out the rest of his life wearing a purple turban to hide his ears. I can think of a lot of people who hear things but don't really listen. It would make life a lot easier to spot them if they all had donkey ears, don't you think? I do wonder, even though this story is not very popular anymore, could it have inspired things like a section of Pinocchio or the donkey head in A Midsummer Night's Dream? Well, now is the time I ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Per my YouTube training videos, if I get a lot of comments, then YouTube thinks it's a good video and shows it to new people. So please, if you have a moment, tell me if you think The Devil Went Down to Georgia is the best song ever. I would like to thank Pixabay.com for the images and sounds and musics and vectors and, well, everything there that they have, and it sure helps out my channel. If you would like to support me on Patreon, Instagram, or Facebook, there are links in the description below. And don't forget the notification bell so you will know when I put out new videos on Sunday. When on Sunday is anyone's guess. And of course, I couldn't do this without you. Your input, your requests, your friendship. I cannot thank you enough. And now, a special thank you for my Patreon friends. Psst! Hey, Artie. Oh, hi, Larry. Is the cameraman around? Why do you ask? Well, we got a new Patreon supporter and a new moral supporter, so I was thinking, that it's time to film a new Patreon. Did you want to do it again? Yep. But, maybe we don't need to tell the cameraman. Larry, we would need the cameraman to film it. Yeah, I guess that's true, but maybe you could protect me? Anyway, we wanted to give a big old loving and heartfelt thank you to Robinson and Ida and Darren and Teresa and Bree Journay and wait, what did you just say? Oh, I figured it was somebody's name, so you was just mispronouncing it the way you always do. Thanks for that, Larry. Oh, you are very welcome, Artie. And Karen and William and my friends Josh, Colleen, and Callum and Celeste and Artie's mom and HW and Bernie and Mike from Japan and now also Kyla. And for moral support, we have Darla and also Alicia. By joining our Patreon friends, you get access to bloopers and pictures that are done by the cameraman and also more images of Rosie and Tiger.
Artie, what are you doing?
Oh, nothing. We're doing nothing. You don't have to come in here. Maybe you should say goodbye.
Artie?
Say goodbye, Larry. Goodbye,